Joe Rogan describes today's guest as always 11 months ahead of the rest of the world. Well, if that is the case, we should all be relieved because the man just became a Christian, and the best kind, I think. He got to start as a DJ on pirate radio, and he's kept that spirit ever since. Shortly after his time as a VJ at MTV, he dove into the world of podcasting. Actually, a better way to put that is he's the guy who really invented or created the world of podcasting by starting the first RSS feeds. Hence his title, The Podfather. He has also earned the title of Conspiracy Therapist. The last time he was on the podcast, we covered, I think, every imaginable topic, but a lot has happened in the past year, and I've changed, and he's changed. Today's guest is a pretty safe bet. You are in for a fascinating hour. Please welcome back to the program, Adam Curry. Before we begin, let's talk about the uncomfortable topic of sweatiness. There was a doctor at Harvard. He was a scientist at Harvard, and Stu told me the other day, he'd never heard of sweat tacos before. You know, that's the ring under your arm, and then when you put them down, it's like tacos. I don't usually keep meat under each arm in a taco form, but if this guy was really, really uncomfortable with the sweat tacos as he would teach, he was just embarrassed by it all the time. Then he realized, I'm a scientist, man. What am I doing? Why am I not coming up with something to deal with this? Well, he did. It's called Sweat Block, and you can get it now at sweatblock.com. You can get it on Amazon as well, but if you want to save money, you'll go to sweatblock.com and use the promo code Beck, and you will save 20% off of your order. They have the regular stick, which is really, really good. The awesome thing really is the Sweat Block wipes. Before you go to bed one night, let's say it's Monday, you just wipe it under each arm. You don't have to apply anything for the next 6-7 days. It's remarkable, really remarkable. Sweat Block. Go to sweatblock.com. Use the promo code Beck. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah.
It really is. I have to say right off the bat, you've had some amazing guests on recently. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, wow.
Jonathan Cahn blew me away. Yeah. Right away I had to read his book. Was it Return of the Gods? Mm-hmm. And I hadn't seen it. I guess it was an older interview with Felix Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah. That couple of years old.
But it aired recently.
Yeah.
You put it on again. And he's really good friends with my uncle, Don Gregg.
That's the CIA
guy,
uncle,
exactly.
Right? Yeah,
so, and Don is still with us. He's now 95, and I think they talk at least once or twice a year. And he always loves. He's a great storyteller. Always loves telling the story about when he was station chief in Vietnam in the 70s, and they had some kind of party, like almost like an ambassador type deal. And Felix would come in from the battlefield with his fatigues, with hand grenades strapped to his belt, and mud on his boots, and I can only stay for a few minutes, Don, I'm going to go. It's like, so seeing him, because I'd never met Felix, was like, wow, that just all kind of came together.
Yeah.
Like, he has some great guests. It's really cool.
Thank you. He's a great guy.
Phenomenal guy.
Yeah, I just saw him in Florida at the governor's inauguration.
Right.
And he's aged quite a bit.
He's 90 in the 90s now as well, right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I have so much to talk to you about.
I'm sorry. I need
you're
to get
kind
that
of
out.
like an expert on everything. But I want to hear about. It was an awkward interview when you were telling Joe Rogan about your turn to Christianity, and I just don't think he understood. I don't think he understood it exactly. I'm not throwing him under the bus.
No. I actually, he was very kind, and I knew he would be kind, and I also knew that I had to say this. It had to get out. The Holy Spirit was working through me big time.
You were an atheist.
Totally.
You are now talking about the Holy Spirit.
I know. It's
crazy.
It's well, as I explained then, and I think we talked about it the last time we were together. I talked about Naomi Wolf, who had written these Substacks, and she's now, I guess you would call her a Messianic Jew, and she converted to Christianity because she was in all the hoity-toity Upper East Side, elite dinner parties and hearing these people talking, financially about how they were going to screw people or didn't care about, just people. And she concluded that that's evil. These people aren't evil, but there's evil there. Evil. And the conclusion is then there has to be a good side. And so exactly what I told Joe is I have always approached all the conspiracy theories. I love it. I've learned a lot from you. It always ends with George Soros at the end of the blackboard. It's always George Soros at the end. And
I wish we would have left him on that studio that looked like the moon.
Unfortunately, now Alexander is up next, so we got to keep our eye on him.
He's worse.
And I just started to study it, and I just started to read books, and within 2-3 weeks, I was like, this is real. There's even these days even more evidence. Was it Metaxas? I think's his name. He just wrote a book.
Metaxas.
Eric Metaxas.
Oh, yeah.
Have you spoken to him?
Oh yeah, a good friend.
Phenomenal guy. So
amazing.
His book about atheism. And it's just like, wow, there's so much out there and so much written. It far surpasses anything you could read about 9/11 or JFK or any of that stuff. So, and then it just grabbed me. And luckily, my wife is on the same journey with me at the same time.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
Was she an atheist too?
Yeah. And, she grew up Catholic, but totally lapsed. And and it never really grabbed her. And I think she'd been I knew she'd been looking longer than I had. I mean, I grew up, my parents were Unitarian, which is like...
Yeah, I know.
All I remember is we drove at 3 a.m. for hours, went up on a hill, and then at sunrise played Cat Stevens' Morning Has Broken. And I'm like, Unitarianism is not for me. And neither is Cat Stevens.
The first time that I ever went to a Unitarian church, it was on the town green in Connecticut. And I went in, and I'm sitting there, and halfway through, preacher gets up to give a sermon, and he said, "Now y'all know that I don't believe in God, but
nice.
Nice. Wait. They should have that on the door someplace outside." Yeah.
What was really interesting, though, and I didn't really witness it all up that close. My dad was, the last 10 years of his life, he was in, basically deteriorated, and he was in a home. But he decided about 3 years before he passed, he became a Christian. He got baptized and everything. Now, he's living in the Netherlands, so it was a little distant from me, and we didn't really have a great relationship. So now it's kind of interesting, like, I'll see you again, and we'll have a different relationship. Yeah. But all these things were nudges. All these things were little clues. And man, once you accept, and I got baptized,
I know,
literally on April 19th. I was like, it was such a phenomenal moment. And the people that come into your life, how things change, it's really mind-boggling.
So that's what I think. When I was watching you with Joe, I wanted to ask the question instead: how have you changed? How is this? Because I look, I don't. When it comes to religion, I have my belief in religion, but God is different than religion. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I found my religion is a great framework for me to help me be a better man. Whether we die and we wake up in a dirt box, I'm going to be surprised. But I was a better man while I was alive because of that. So how have you changed?
Well, the first thing is I've realized that he has been working through me for a long time.
Always.
I remember very well 1990 is when, there's this, and I love scripture and stuff sticks in my head. It's like, if by worrying can you gain a single hour of your life, or don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough to worry about itself. And there was a moment in 1990 where I was fired for the 7th time by MTV, and I had $100 in the bank, mortgage, I had a 2-year-old child, all this stuff. It's like, and I was so freaked out for days and days and days, and then magically MTV called, they hired me back for 5 times the amount, all this stuff happened. And I decided never again am I going to worry about, certainly not about money, just not going to worry about it. And never really cared about it that much. And now I realize all the things. I believe even the invention of podcasting was him working through me, all the way through what we're doing now with Podcasting 2.0. And now I realize with No Agenda, the podcast John and I do, there's a lot that has been channeled through me, and it comes from our boots on the ground people. And man, once I professed my faith, the amount of Christians who stood up and said, "We've been praying for you for 10 years. It's about time." So that has made me a much better man, and just in so many ways. I have much more patience. I am really starting to understand, love not as a chemistry, but truly what God and religion is about. I am quick to listen, slow to answer, slow to get angry. These types of things. I don't get angry. And we all get annoyed by stuff. Sure. I'm still divinely human, but how I approach people.
It's completely different, isn't it?
I mean, even George Soros, you have to see him in 3D. I know. You have to see all aspects of it to understand where he's coming from. So I don't hate.
That is. So I have been saying recently, ringing the bell pretty hard. You probably know this. The history of the Weimar Republic. We're repeating it exactly.
Right down to transgenderism.
Yes, exactly. And what happened in Germany, Dietrich Bonhoeffer always thought he was missing something that Gandhi had done, but he hadn't. It's that the churches, the Christians, had already closed their hearts. And they were looking for
Sing louder so we don't hear the children screaming as the trains go by.
Right. And we're looking for somebody to fix this problem.
Yes.
And if we don't prepare our hearts, so we love if you don't understand, we're all God's children. And I don't know about you, but I want all my children with me. You know what I mean?
Yes,
if one of them's lost, go out and see if you can help my child. I want them all back. He's the same way. So us hating the ones who hate us is absolutely not the way to go.
And unfortunately, that hate is, in general, the American media model. This is how social media works. This is how cable television news works. I mean, all they do all day is yell at the other guy. And oh my God, Tucker's gone. Who are we going to yell at now? Well, yell about Tucker on Twitter. Yell about Elon, whatever. Just yell. Right. And of course, that's why politicians love that, because that's ultimately also money. If you want to be on a committee, you need $1 million. So they need money, need to raise money. The super PAC. So they use the same strife and opposition. And we get spun up. We get so spun up, and of course, I can get spun up too. We all get spun up about stuff, but it doesn't help. It just doesn't solve anything. It's not the answer.
Have you had a different view of? I mean, you just talked about your friends in New York. That it was evil. She saw that it was evil. I am shocked at how clearly evil has presented itself now. I mean, we've gone from a good place that had some evil to an evil place that has some good, or at least it feels
that way. It does.
So have you had a different view and outlook on what we're facing?
Well, we're facing Satan. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's not bad people. It's just people who've been completely captured. The sad part is what Big Pharma has done to us. And COVID, a lot of this was really cemented with COVID. And trust in the science, believe the science. Science is your God. And this is why people still walk outside, with a mask on. Because they have been completely captured by a force. Some people will, unfortunately, have to get voted off the island. We cannot save everybody, but I'd like to. So for me, that, trying to, and this was even before I came to God and Jesus, I was already kind of telling my audience, like, if someone comes to you and says, hey, I think I kind of screwed up with that and I'm sorry, family members, let them back into your heart. And a lot of people are like, I'm never going to forget this. That's not going to work. It's a short-term solution. You really have to. Yeah. But it's hard and it's scary. I mean, when I professed to Joe, it was scary. because I didn't know what was going to happen. But I was like, I got to do this. I got to tell everybody. What happened, Glenn, is this went viral. There were pastors showing clips of me with Rogan in church and saying, pray for Adam so he can pray for Joe. I mean, this is insane, what happened. And I think, just like in 1966, famous Time magazine cover, Is God Dead? That was only 3 years before the Jesus Freaks came out. Jesus Revolution, great movie, by the way. If you see, I love that movie. And it feels like we may be in a similar point in history.
I think we are.
It feels like it. Aslan is on the move. Something is happening here, and for us to even have this conversation, maybe in the 80s and 90s we would be totally seen as kooks. That's not that way anymore. It just isn't.
It's really it's very interesting, because just a year ago I was railing on. I think we have a lot of Christians that don't believe in Christianity, because they'll say, what are we going to do? And I'll be like, follow the Lord. Just follow the Lord. Do what he says. Do the next right thing, and we'll be okay. And they'd be like, yeah, well, I'm doing that. But what are we going to do about, the way the world is? And I'm like, miracles.
You're right.
He
pray. How about pray? Let's pray.
He rose from the dead. That's a lot harder than fixing America.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, that was a good one. There's so much scripture that I find incredibly helpful. For me personally, like in the morning, first, I ask the Holy Spirit, just fill me up, just fill up my buckets, man. I'm just gonna splash out goodness everywhere I can go. This is from my pastor, Jimmy Pruitt. He taught me all this. But particularly what you and I do, I put on the breastplate of righteousness. I've got my feet firmly planted, my shoes in the good
Gospel
news. I've
peace.
got my shield of truth. I've got my helmet of salvation, and I've got I have my sword by my hand of the Word of God, and it really seems to work. This is the thing, and prayer works, and loving people works. It's not easy, and you have to work at it, but we work it so much. There's so much that we do.
At times, my wife and I have an agreement that whenever we get into an argument, we will stop and say, let's get down on our knees and pray. And it's always solved. Always, no matter how bad it was, always solved after the prayer. Yeah. But there are times when it'll come to mind, get down on your knees and pray, and I'll be like, no, I want to win. You know what I mean? It's just so against the natural man.
It is, but this is not a war of the flesh, man. This is a war of the spirit. It's a spiritual war, and unfortunately, we're fighting each other. It's
interesting to me you bring up the full armor of God, because I've pondered that so many times, that your feet are shod in the gospel of peace. So that's taking you away from jamming that sword through somebody. The helmet of salvation, you can't do anything until you get rid of the past and you're not thinking about all of the mistakes, and you're clear and in the present. You know what I mean? It's just such and the shield of truth. You just hold the truth up. In these days, all of this makes sense now.
Yeah. It does, and it works. And the one thing I know is I don't get too preachy with people.
Sure.
If anyone, just like my friend, I woke up one day and said, "What are these Christians doing around? Who are these men I'm working with?" And they're all Christians. Oh yeah, I pray for this, I pray for that. And when you ask questions, they were happy to answer me.
Yeah, but they didn't jam it down your throat. Same thing with me.
It doesn't work. Doesn't work with your kids. Doesn't work with anybody. Just let it go.
Best conversion comes from just great examples.
Absolutely, and there are quite a few.
There are.
There are quite a few.
There are.
And just look at media. As we said, Jesus Revolution. That movie wasn't expected to do more than $7 million. What is it, 70 now?
Yeah,
I mean, it's amazing. The Chosen. Very successful TV series.
And isn't it interesting? There's so much money to be made there, and it never goes there. There's so much money to be made in just. Doesn't even have to be wholesome Little House on the Prairie. Just not having everybody, making out, having sex, swearing, using the F word all the time, something that the entire family could sit down and watch. Well, they don't make them.
I mean, I grew up with the Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, me too. We're the same age.
And the Waltons and all this. And we loved that. That was cool. Yeah, you're right. But that's all. I mean, that's one of the main things that's changed for me. I don't cuss as much. I've really gotten a lot better at that. It doesn't make sense. And when you change your words, you're changing your world. Yeah, there's a lot to that. So using different words, looking at words, listening to what people are saying, and
I remember I was on a top 40 radio station when I changed, and everybody used to say that that my slogan was "I hate people," because they really drove me nuts. But really, what it was.
What station was this?
This was up in Connecticut.
Okay.
And I was at the end of my career.
Like Hartford, Connecticut?
No, New Haven.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was at the end of my career.
Yeah.
And I turn my life around. I sober up. I find God, and I'm on the phone doing stuff on the air, and I'm talking to people on the phone, and they're usually just very quick conversation. It's top 40. Move.
Yeah. Hey, man.
And I'm actually like talking to people, and because I'm for the very first time fascinated, because all of a sudden I care about people. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it is such a cool discovery.
Yeah.
From going from a guy who really hated people, I don't want to talk to them, to tell me about yourself. What are you doing? What are you exploring? What's happening? It's fun.
Turns out when you ask people to talk about themselves, they talk a lot and they got lots of things to say.
Yeah. And usually a lot of really important and good things.
There's one actual change I've made. I kind of tried to ditch the smartphone. I got a light phone. I don't know if you heard of this, the Light Phone 2, which is it's almost like a mini Kindle, and it just does text message and calling and alarm and calendar. That. And so I notice now that if I'm in the checkout line at HEB, which is our Texas supermarket, instead of doom scrolling, doing whatever, I'm observing people, and I'll talk to the guy behind me and have a little conversation, and it's really been enriching. That is a lot of what we do on our phones is drawing us in and taking us to dark places.
Well, isn't it amazing? We pray, and our head is bowed to our device.
Yeah,
it has become our God. More with Adam Curry here in a second. First, you work hard for the money you earn, and if you're like me, when you have to spend that money, you prefer to spend it on things that are made right, that you have to buy once, and preferably are made here in America, and not some crazy ESG company. Having things made in America is not just patriotic. We have to start making things again. We have to be creators again. Made in America meant something. It lasts longer, it was built better, but it also came with a sense of pride. One of the reasons why I love partnering with companies like Grip 6 is you're getting that true American experience. A guy who literally was in his house, may have been in his garage, and talking to a friend, and they were talking about, I think it was wallets, and he's like, there's a better way to make this. And they're completely different. But he said, if we're going to do this, he made his friend a wallet, and his friend said, we should make these. He said, if we're going to do it, we have to do it all in America. So then now they make wallets, they make belts, all kinds of things, and their socks are tremendous. True American business pioneers. I want you to try some of their products. Just go and look. Their socks truly are great. Grip6.com/Beck. That's grip6.com/Beck. The turning point in our children's lives was high school getting devices. They didn't have phones. They didn't have access to social media, none of it. And that changed them. It changed them. I think it is the great destroyer of our time.
Well, I have a daughter and two stepdaughters who kind of grew up with the transition from the T-Mobile Sidekick to the smartphone, which came 2007 with the iPhone. And especially with girls. I mean, girls are the target.
Girls are the target.
Well, they're mean anyway in
Yeah.
middle school, but they are
Yeah.
the target. They are the target of everything. They're being targeted. And it wasn't really until 2008, more or less, when we saw a huge increase in cutting, all kinds of eating disorders. And
Do you understand the cutting thing? Because I don't understand it.
No, I don't. I don't. I mean, intellectually, you can tell me a lot about it, but that I'm afraid to even get an IV.
Yeah.
I can't imagine any of that. But it's an obvious. It's huge distress. It's huge distress, and I totally believe that what we're seeing now with transgenderism, which of course there's a real body dysmorphia issue. People have that. People who literally don't want to have a leg and aren't happy until it's amputated.
But we wouldn't do that.
No. Well, this is the pharmaceutical industry, and I've had a lot of conversations about this on our show, where the American Psychology Association, the American Association of Pediatrics, just like COVID, they control the doctors. You can, if a patient comes to you and says, "I'm confused about my sexuality," which is very normal for teenage girls, because it's like, well, do I want to be like Kim Kardashian and get the boob job, or do I want to be something else? And the answer is written out in the rules for the therapist: you're a boy. And here's the path that you go down. And they can't deviate from that without losing their insurance, losing their practice. I mean, it's horrible.
I have friends who have lost their practice.
Since we've been talking about this, people have come out of the woodwork, and there's some very brave therapists who say, I have to talk about this. But this is a problem.
And doesn't that frighten you? Again, Germany. What Mengele was doing was
exactly this.
Was all fine and standard in Germany. They had shut up and pushed out any doctor that was going to have a problem with it. So you were left with these people that had no real sense of humanity in them. Dangerous.
What always surprises me is, I grew up in the Netherlands, and I went over to play at friends' houses, and their grandmas had numbers on their arms. And we haben es nicht gewusst, we didn't know, never again. But here we are. Where are the voices saying, well, we got to stop? We're at the never again moment. So luckily, as bad as the internet can be, we can have this conversation. It can be seen by millions around the world. So it's good. I mean,
it's the same. Everything, the internet, America, the internet, you, me. Are you good or bad? The answer is yes. There's
precisely.
It's just depending which direction is it headed. Or is it getting better or worse? Right. Are you using it and things are getting better? We just don't seem to recognize that. Let me switch gears to a few things that I know you have studied all these. That honestly, Adam, I am changing so much. I've changed so much since 2020. 1995, I sober up. I get baptized by 99. I started doing talk radio 2000. And I thought, okay, well,
I'm set. I'm coasting. I'm good.
Yeah.
Nope.
Almost everything, I believe, has changed deeply. And I don't know if it's always been this way. But one thing, let me start with this. The one thing I'm really concerned about is we are erasing history. We're erasing America. Our whole story is going to be gone if we don't. If the other side wins, if you will, it'll be gone. It'll be gone. And I've been trying to get a spacesuit. Anything. I'm talking to Charlie Duke. He was, I think, on Apollo 14, and I'm asking him, what in your mind would prove that we have gone to
the moon.
Space, gone to the
space
moon
at all.
Yeah, and because I think, and they're already seeing it, Russia is already putting propaganda out that we didn't go to the moon. That number is on the rise. We went to the moon.
I'm not so sure. I'll be honest with you, Glenn. The thing that bothers me is, we erased the tapes. We've lost all the evidence. As you say, we're losing so much evidence. I would love to see someone go to the moon right now, and we have enough rich guys who are doing it. I would really love nothing more. I really would. There's obviously some space. We've got satellites up there that are slowly falling. It's also not the most important thing. I'm more concerned what we're doing on Earth. That's where cyberspace is where the real problems are right now.
Yes, I agree with that. However, I'm very excited about the new Starship rocket. I mean, I don't want my government spending all that money. But if Elon Musk wants to spend that money, I think that's exciting. That man, first of all, I kind of agree with Elon, not because of global warming, but because we're facing a time where we have really big philosophical choices to make, and I'm not sure we're ready to make them. So it wouldn't be bad for some humans to go off and scatter the seed around the universe.
We may have a disagreement here. I mean, there's so much we can do here on Earth, so much we can fix. I know where I'm going when I'm dead. I already know that, and I'll get a new body. I'll be looking forward to it. Things are going to be. I'll have work to do, but it'll be important work. To me, that's a little bit of a distraction. It's pulling away from the things we need to fix right now, right here, because what good will it be if the escape is only out there?
No, I know. I know. I'm hedging my bet for humankind, but I think you and I disagree on AI. I am.
I saw your talk with Tristan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, I do.
And he
disagree.
is fantastic on social media.
He was the whole thing he did about algorithms, etc., was spot on.
Spot on.
Dynamite.
He disagrees with a lot of people in the AI space, but I'm seeing a lot of those people because I've been following this since the 90s, and Ray Kurzweil. Mm-hmm. I am thrilled by the idea of AI. People don't know the whole world can open up between AI and quantum computing. There are answers that will solve cancer, all kinds of stuff, right around the corner.
I think we disagree there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think this is a load of horse crap.
Really?
Let's look at the timeline of AI. So all of a sudden, Microsoft starts doing something. Facebook starts doing something with AI that you're hearing it. This is very recent history. And then all of a sudden, Google jumps in. They're running as fast as they can. We've got Google barf, whatever it's called. They demo and they lose $100 billion in market value because the thing doesn't work right. Why this rush? Why wasn't Siri already talking to me in normal parlance and answering normal questions?
Siri is narrow AI. This is a totally different engine underneath it.
Let's first talk about what is AI. So it stands for artificial intelligence. I think it's a euphemism that is just not right. It's not intelligence. It's algorithms. It's versions of Skip. And a lot of people, the AI people really think I'm nuts to say this, but I'm looking at what are the big companies doing? Why do we have this call all of a sudden to stop it because AI is going to eat the world? I don't believe any of it. We'll call it AI, but it's not really intelligence. You're giving it a script. It learns stuff and it can do things. And because of the LLM, the large language model, it can speak and understand much better than Siri would do. So it's really that's the core that got out. And this was open source by Stanford. And this is where it all went wrong for Silicon Valley, for big tech. Because now people are loading this on their own machines. And where 6 months ago it took $5 million to train AI on a set of data, now it's $500. So if you get 100 people, it each costs you $5 to do it. It is inherently a decentralized technology.
Correct.
And Google cannot afford, their model is tracking you, knowing who you are, building a shadow person of you, and advertising and selling your behavior to advertisers. Now, all of a sudden, they've got to load up 12 gigabytes of computing power, not storage, computing power to handle your AI requests. Their business model is breaking. That's why they need to stop. That's why they want legislation.
Okay, so wait. I want to make sure I understand. So you're not saying that AI, I understand the intelligence, I agree. There's a difference between endless facts and figures and wisdom and knowledge. But you're not denying that AI that this is happening, that ChatGPT is a remarkable.
Well, it's doing some remarkable things, but it can't do everything.
Correct.
This is Google's business is ask me anything, and I'm going to give you all the answers. I'm going to give you 5 links to ads before I give you the answers, and find your own answers down here. Now we had to create this new terminology. Well, AI sometimes hallucinates. In other words, it gets gets stuff wrong. So so I'm already questioning what is the use of this now. Is it going to be useful for certain things and take away certain jobs? Yes. Particularly customer service. And this is what British Telecom already announced. We're going to fire 50,000 people, 10,000 of those people because of AI. No, I think it's because of financials. They got to fire some people. But 10,000 jobs in customer service, I believe it, because you can take the entire knowledge base of British Telecom, all the questions people answer, and you can hone that into something that can now use this large language model.
That's not Siri.
And can speak to you the way you might get your customer service today. So so customer service will just suck cheaper. That's basically what they're going for.
Okay.
And so my friend is a periodontist. I was just talking to him. It was like, we can load up a whole model of all the stuff you know about all your patients, all the procedures you've done, everything that your knowledge and the knowledge that is in your field, and you can definitely create an artificial intelligence where a periodontist can say, here's this particular patient I have, here's the things I'm looking to do, what strategy should I take? That will absolutely work.
Yes.
It's not going to eat the world. It's going to be a great tool for the periodontist. Google and Meta and all these companies, they know that if they can't do it all, then people will go towards these decentralized. You saw the memo that came out, and it's basically, we have no moat around this technology. So what do you do in America when you don't have a moat? You do what you do to TikTok. It's like, hey, TikTok's eating our advertising lunch, people. What are we going to do? Let's get it banned through legislation. I truly believe that is the initial impetus for doing this.
That's the reason why I am so against any ban. Because I know who's going to be writing the legislation. It'll be big tech writing it for the losers in Washington.
Of course.
And it'll block everyone else from having access. That's why I liked the original OpenAI model.
Idea, right.
Yeah.
But then what they
leave
do?
it open. Then they
made a commercial.
Yes.
They made a commercial. So I think this is an arms race that is really going nowhere, and they really just want to slow it down and stop it and make sure that other people can't enter the space.
I hope you end up being right.
I really feel it's so unimpressive to me. I mean, yeah, it's great when I can ask it things, and I use it for scripture all the time. Hey, give me something. But you cannot train the world's data into AI cost efficiently.
So let's talk about this. Forget about the eating the world. Look at what has happened just on social media with very simple algorithms. You take that algorithm and you can train the large language model to be your buddy. Think of the damage and how many people will fight to the death. It's alive. That's my friend. It's alive. They'll bond with these things. Try to take somebody's phone away right now.
Correct.
Imagine when it knows you and is giving you what it wants, and it might be right, might be wrong, but you believe it.
Well, I think that goes for with or without AI. If you're going to believe what you want to believe, and that's parenting, that's community, etc. I look forward to training my own AI for things that'll work for me. Yeah. And you can already do that today on your home computer.
Right.
That's the whole. So all this fear mongering is just that. The algorithms on social media, we're back to the American media model. The whole idea was strife. People are talking about this.
Correct.
Bring in someone who has the opposite opinion. This is why TikTok ran away with everybody's advertising lunch. And I mean, you've heard this. You know what's going on in ad business. Literally, now they're entering the search advertising market.
Right.
So this is a big problem. What they did is very much more a Chinese model of, you're all into conservative talk. We're going to put all of you in here, and we're not going to put any liberal talk in there. You're liberal. This is why if you look around, you'll see people are, on one hand, I get emails from people saying, you're wrong. This is not about advertising money. They want this thing gone because all the patriots are on TikTok. And then you look over here and it's like, they want TikTok gone because all the trans and gay people are on TikTok. What's happening? They split it up. They didn't use the American model. And it turns out it's much more profitable when you don't pit people against each other. This is what's so crazy. So that is why they need it to be gone, because that is not the model that works. So you think
that TikTok is fine? We shouldn't do anything with it?
No. Okay. Because obviously TikTok is part of what got us in the situation with teenage girls. But this has been going on since Tumblr.
Yeah, I know.
Tumblr was the place where teenage girls would find out about how to be bulimic.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's really frightening with TikTok with the filters where you look like a model.
I think we even talked about this last time. This is, of course, fashion in general has been doing this for a long, long time.
Right.
And and advertising, if you don't look like this, if you don't drink our beer, you're not getting laid. I mean, this has been going on for a long time.
So what do you think when you say that girls and women are the target?
Totally.
I mean, you look at what's happening with transgenderism, and it is so anti-woman.
Well, and the distraction is male to female transition. That's the distraction. It's real. We do have biological men competing in women's sports.
Correct.
But that's where the outrage comes in. Meanwhile, 80% of the transitioning is teenage girls.
Right.
And you don't hear about it. Affirmation Generation is a fantastic documentary. It's on YouTube. It's done by liberal therapists. They're all Democrats. They say that right. And there's detransitioners. And when you hear what was really happening medically, and parents, you need to sit down and watch this with your children. I mean, it's a little tough to watch, but it's really, really good, and it's honest, and it tells you what's happening.
Boy, there's not a lot of honesty.
And the girls, they are the target. And what happened?
Why? To what end?
It's the pharmaceutical industry. It's what they do. It's what they did with COVID. It's what they've done with many, many illnesses. We've taken away everything. I mean,
is there no one? I mean, no one that has ethics around money. Is that really what we've come to?
For the love of money is the root of all evil.
I know, but I mean, we used to be able to have people that, there were evil people and, where it comes to money. And then other people are like, no, just because we can doesn't mean we do. But it seems like everybody.
Well, everyone is captured. Everyone is afraid. We all kind of live on the brink of paycheck to paycheck. I mean, this is no surprise that not everybody can. It's not the way it used to be. This is part of the credit system. We're already kind of captured financially. Correct. So in 2020, we had a no agenda meetup in Vegas, and a lot of medical professionals there were people who trained ventilator technicians. And they said straight up to me. Now, they could not say this in public, but they said, we're killing people. This is the wrong protocol. It's the wrong thing to do. What do you read now in the news? Oh, right. We killed people with ventilators. Mm-hmm. It's so strong, the media, the money, the fear of complete annihilation as a person. Mm-hmm. Because when credit came in, we just didn't have a way to, there's no salvation. You've got this nut at the end of the month, no matter what it is. Right. And people are afraid. Of course, when you come to the Lord, you get a lot less afraid about these things. So that would be my message.
Less.
But that's not going to hit home for everybody.
Can we spend a time on it?
Yeah,
just for a minute. More with Adam Curry in just a second. First, let me tell you about Jace Medical. I've talked about the Jace case for a while. It holds 5 of the most important antibiotics for emergency use. But I am a prepper. I believe that AI could eat us. I believe the government could eat us. There's lots of things that could go wrong. And, we'll get better and things will correct itself eventually. But that time when maybe you have a supply chain disruption could be deadly for some people, literally. The one thing you can't prep for until now is if you are on heart medication or, some sort of antidepressant or whatever you're on. Now, Jace Medical has a prescription supply service that allows you to get up to 12-month backup and have that supply on hand just in case. Now, that's cholesterol, diabetes, heart, blood pressure, mental health, whatever it is that you're taking. It's reviewed by a certified healthcare professional and delivered right to your door. It's really good if you're a prepper like I am. JaceMedical.com, JaceMedical.com. Use the promo code Beck at checkout. I am shocked at what people, doctors will say, what is your stress level like? And I'm like, it's pretty high, but I'm good. Because I've come to this place, and it took me a long time, but I come to this place where I really truly know it all works out for whatever he wants. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean I'm going to have a great time, but he's got me. He's got me. And no matter my situation, my goal in life is to be, hopefully never ever have to go through this, but be the guy who was the guy in the priest that was in the concentration camp that was singing and teaching everybody in the barracks how to sing and be happy. And then they had to put him in a hole,
right,
and then go kill him eventually because he just refused to be unhappy.
I think the version of that today, and what we've always done, kind of a no agenda through humor mainly, and just mocking in a way, is just help people not get spun up, because that's the whole idea. When you get spun up about something, you are an easy target. You're a target for so many things, particularly for the enemy. You are just an easy target. You lose everything. And what is the number one symptom people have today, particularly children? Anxiety. It's Johnny's anxious. I mean, it's. Our schooling system, teachers have been captured. It's the same thing. They are now the feedback loop. Well, Johnny, we might want to up his meds because he's a little bit out of whack today. Yeah. And this is...
That used to be controversial. I remember in the 90s, a friend of mine had children before I did, and it was in the late 80s. And they were like, I'm not putting him in this school because they say if we don't medicate...
Yeah, Ritalin for boys.
Yeah, right.
Certainly,
and they pulled him out of the school. Now... everybody.
All the kids have to have a break at 10:15 to take their meds.
Yeah. It's like, when Tom Cruise jumped on Oprah's couch and he was talking about the medicine and everything, I watched that again and I'm like, I think he's right.
And at the time, I remember I wasn't. What a nut job. Yeah. What is Tom Cruise doing? Must be that Scientology stuff.
Yeah.
It's right now, we're in such a dark place, but it's savable. Our food. So we're not eating food. You go through the supermarket, you're just seeing processed, colorful stuff. It's like a circus in there.
I was just thinking about that last night.
And so what happens is, we have 41, maybe even 47% of all children are moving towards obesity. And lo and behold, magic above all magic. They even took the old song, oh, it's magic. Here's a drug that helps you lose weight. And it's not really, it's helping you lose your lean body mass, which translation is muscle. So you're actually losing your muscle. Now they're taking it one step further with the competitor to that. It's actually a brain and body drug. And people are, I no longer feel like drinking. I no longer feel like smoking. I'm no longer nail biting. This is
what?
It's with a W. I forget the name. It's the same drug, just a different dose. And it used to be a diabetes drug.
Wow. As an alcoholic, I will tell you that is terrifying.
And I think it's because it's also lean body mass, your brain. So maybe it's rotting away some of your brain. But when I grew up in the Netherlands, it was the big joke about Americans. Americans are crazy, man. They walk around with water in a bottle. These people are not. They do something called jogging and aerobics. This was nuts. And then they have a pill for everything in America. And I was like, nah, it's not really true. But now it's truly there. And we don't know what half the stuff does. We don't know what SSRIs really do. But I do know that there's a high percentage of children who are on certain, I won't name brand names, but a certain antidepressants. And I hear from pharmacists, well, actually, suicide rate is greater on these things. So we've got to grab control of our lives and of our children. we're very fortunate. Our kids, although all of them were on some kind of drug at some point, every single one of them, and they're now in their 26, 28, and 32. All girls, all have been on some kind of crazy ass drug that didn't even exist when I was a kid.
I know.
So we've got to realize what's going on.
So let me go back to some of the conspiracy theory stuff. We
agree we're not going to talk about the moon anymore.
No. I mean, I actually want to hear your evidence on it at some point. I'm reading a book, I think it's called Moonshot. And it's a guy who says absolutely positively. Have you read that?
I've not read it. But
okay, yeah. So, I mean, I am always fascinated with the other side, and I don't, you choose to believe what you believe. You're either just taught it and you're like, okay, or you'll look at both sides and then you have to choose. And I've done that with many things in my life. And one is the CIA. I always thought, CIA is in there helping us. Now,
Catholics in action. We jump out of airplanes and save the world.
Yeah. Now I look at the CIA, and especially Jeffrey Epstein. That guy, I think, had to have been an operative for either us or somebody else. And that was a really sick, twisted honeypot thing to gain power over people. It's just freaking evil from start to finish. But there's no way to explain it other than he was in a protected class of some sort. Because no way we would ever, if this was happening to a ring of truck drivers, we'd know all of the truck drivers and there'd be torches at their houses. This one has all of the big elites of the world from all over the world. And nobody wants to do anything about it.
So my whole family is military and intelligence. I'm kind of the black sheep of the family.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the FBI invented this model. The FBI was born, J. Edgar Hoover was born as a blackmailer. I mean, that's what the FBI did. And CIA, and it's interesting you bring this up now because, we're still waiting for some actual documents about JFK. And
well, that's another, may I say, so just for a second?
Yeah.
I never bought that. I always bought that it was Oswald by himself. But for these documents to be held as long as they are, and then to disobey Congress and say no, and presidents are involved, and then for them to release, they say they're holding stuff back because it could be damaging, but for them to release that the CIA knew Oswald, had him on their payroll at the time, well, now wait a minute, hang on just a second. That's a whole different story.
There's some evidence that actually the mob killed JFK and the CIA knew it and couldn't stop it, and that was the embarrassment that they didn't want to talk about. Maybe one day we'll find out.
You think it was mob, or because I think
the actual hit was likely mob, but CIA knew. They knew it. There was a lot of reasons for it.
There was a lot of people making a lot of money.
Also, the Kennedy family, had some mob connections of their own, some bootlegging and stuff. So, and Bobby Kennedy was not really friendly towards the mob. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. But I'll take RFK Jr.'s side any day because I think he's much closer to it, and he's pretty adamant that the CIA did this. But back to your premise, this CIA grew, and that would be like the starting moment. And that's all they've done is honeypotting black men. People think that, it's like James Bond stuff. No, it's information warfare. And it used to be where CIA would be in Uganda and be working for a newspaper. And we know that this has all happened, that CIA was in the news organizations. And they'd write some misinformation, true mis or disinformation, and so that the New York Times, in the Ugandan Times, so the New York Times could then say, according to the Ugandan Times, this is happening. They don't even care about that anymore. Sources say, according to people familiar with the matter, doesn't it? So that's all.
And you see everything that's happened the last 5 years. If you go back and look at what the media said on the whole Russiagate stuff, it was all intelligence sources say. Say.
And it turns out, according to the Durham report, that, it was all pretty much bullcrap. So what is really left for them? the evils of that strike men, homosexuality, prostitution, all these types of things. It's still used a little bit like, oh, we need to get rid of him. Found porn on his computer. Oh, sorry, you're canceled.
And the only taboo, and it's starting to go away. The only taboo left is sex with children.
That's pretty much, it's
the only taboo.
That's where we're at. Mm-hmm. So it's also very possible that a lot of people are implicated in things when they surrounded Epstein who maybe were totally did nothing wrong. I mean, that's very possible. And they may be used, or they may be implicated just by association with Epstein. But in general, it seems, look at his townhouse, look at all the cameras, everything that was being recorded. It's so obvious. Have you ever met Tim Weiner, I think he is? He wrote Legacy of Ashes. Great book about the CIA. He wrote one later about the FBI, but I think by then someone had a little chat with him. But Legacy of Ashes, this was actually what brought me into, this is 15, 16 years ago. I read this book, and my uncle's in it.
In the book?
A lot. He was big in the CIA. He was Bush Sr.'s national security advisor. Iran-Contra, all that stuff happened around him. Felix, involved in all that stuff. And I call him up. I said, Uncle Dom, did this really happen? And he says, yeah, that's pretty much how I remember it. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then you just see, now of course this is all a lot of the early stuff was literally jump out of airplanes and save the world. But then it just got into a place of information warfare and lying, and all of our media is completely infiltrated and corrupt. They've got thousands of people working in a room on writing books so that former agents or former military can go on a tour talking about stuff. And then we ultimately come down to the another evil is the military-industrial complex. Yeah. All these things work together so well. We've got food working with pharma. Let's keep people just alive enough. We've got military-industrial complex draining our bank account. I was just reading yesterday, one Stinger missile 7 years ago cost $25,000. Today, it's $400,000. One Stinger missile, $400,000. I mean, we're being robbed blind, and wars are being created or maintained to keep this money train going. So, and then we're at the bankers.
Yeah, I know.
Central bank.
I mean, they're all of it. Well, let me go back a little bit further. The OSS, it's the beginning. We're fighting a great evil. So we get into all of this stuff. But I've been looking a lot into Operation Paperclip.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you mean when we brought all the Nazis here?
Yeah. And for them to go into rockets, we excuse, I was raised to believe that Wernher von Braun was an okay guy. He was just, really into rockets. No, I don't think he was necessarily a really good guy. What I worry about, though, are all of the guys who were doing scientific medical experiments.
Eugenics.
Yes. And those people were just absorbed. I'm wondering how much of our problems today with medicine and everything else is because we brought a bunch of Nazi doctors and just put them into the system.
I'll take it back one step further. The American Eugenics Society, Hitler was a fan.
I know.
He would send fan letters like, you guys are doing great things. And we had state fairs with children beauty contests.
Yep.
Is your kid the perfect kid?
The Human Betterment Society.
There you go.
Yeah.
And this is all before Nazi Germany.
Yeah, turn of the century.
And then we decide, we can, even the Supreme Court said, it's probably good to sterilize some people. We don't want a third generation of morons running around.
Right.
This was the Supreme Court that made this decision.
Teddy Roosevelt said we wouldn't breed our cattle. You'd be put into an asylum if you just let them choose.
So now that progressed. We actually did sterilize poor black women. And then Hitler took a lot of this on, and then he started doing a little more extreme stuff, and the eugenics people in America went, well, not like that, and they kind of retreated into the background. But did it ever go away?
I don't think so.
But so this whole slavery, Black Lives Matter, that's so minor compared to what really the genesis is of all of this stuff. And then we brought them back here. I believe America is good. I really do. Under God, America is a great country. It's worth fighting for. It's worth having this conversation because just looking around, I mean, the capture of Europe, the UK, you can't even speak freely anymore. If it's not us, then we're in for some dark times. And we got to admit our history. We got to be honest about it. And this is part of it.
Most Americans will be fine with that. Most Americans, I do believe America is great because America is good. And I don't mean the government. I mean the people of America generally. I didn't know they were doing all this stuff in my name. No way.
This is the problem with America. We are good people. And it used to be you didn't talk about religion or politics with your neighbor. And you would actually have a cookout, hang out, talk about sports, whatever. And then your dad might say, he's a liberal nut job. But he's my neighbor. I like him.
Right.
And we are so good. We so want to be nice and kind to people, which is why when you come in and say, you're the only country in the world that had this horrible slavery thing, we're shocked and we're just traumatized. And not just as Black Americans, we're traumatized over and over and over again by this, and we're being taken advantage of.
Yep.
And just you're bad and you're horrible. And the amount of people who literally will be sitting on a Zoom call. HBO, I heard this from someone, a producer, that it was coming up on July 4th, and the producers who were on this 20-person Zoom call, HBO, say, I like the holiday, but I really don't care about America anymore. And that's people who are making media that is influencing us. So, I mean, I think there's enough people to turn that around. I think enough people
there's more
see
every
the goodness
day.
of it. Yeah.
There's more every day. But we can't do what we did, I think, in the 1960s. We addressed racism, and then the government came up with what I think is a very racist civil rights bill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
By a racist president.
By a racist president. There's no way they didn't know this was accomplishing all of their racist goals. But then they do that. Martin Luther King is shot, and we're kind of like, hey, okay, I think we solved this, right? And we didn't, as a people, atone for it. I'm reparations. I'm not for atonement. I am absolutely for it.
Oh man, I'd love to have atonement. Yes,
we have to.
I'd love to have that.
And if we get through this, we must atone for everything that we have done, because we may not have been responsible. We didn't know per se that all of these things were being done in our name, but it is our name. And if we want to fix it, then we do have to open it up and put it away in the right drawer, not just shove it into some closet.
And so the only way that works, I mean, we've got to get our heads out of who's going to be president. It's just not that important compared to your own community, your town, your county, your state, this local community. This is where it has to start. That's the only way. We're going to have to start looking at our local schools. And I take some blame for that in the 80s and 90s. We were partying. I didn't look. School board, you loser.
Yeah.
What are you doing? City council? Like, you got nothing better to do? So we have to atone for that as well, to ourselves, to our children, and we got to get back into it. And we got to start working on it with love and passion and viewing people in 3D, because otherwise you're just going to blow up your towns. You can't do this. And as Americans, as human beings, we're capable of that. We really, when you approach someone and not like, you're horrible and you're left or you're right, you're this or that, it actually works out. We can actually find common ground. Let's go have a beer.
If it's, think how arrogant it is to say, I don't want to talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
It's the height of arrogance. You mean to tell me that you have no curiosity on how they came to that point of view? That person, whether you end up agreeing or not, has nothing to teach you, nothing to share of value. Oh my gosh.
Well, when it's being reinforced every 5 minutes that you pick up your phone. We were on vacation, Tina and I, and at this great little place in Jamaica, and we we were in God. We're having a great time. We're feeling it's a very religious island. The staff would pray with us before dinner. It was fantastic. And we're literally looking at some people, and it's 3 minutes. 3 minutes is the max time any person can go without looking at their phone. That's what it is. It's reinforcement. It's right there. And you can't even get a minimalist interface on the App Store. They won't let you have that. It's there to do this to you. And for money, it's for I'm not saying Tim Cook is evil, but the whole system is just rife with it. You got to get away from it and take your kids away from it. This screen-induced autistic behavior is real. The good news is you take the screen away after the ranting and raving for an hour, the kid will return to normal, but you've got to do it. So, we used to have to come home when the street lights went on. We had rock fights, all that. I don't want to sound like an old guy yelling at the clouds, but let's be honest, we're hitting kids with dopamine every 3 minutes. You're just letting them run rampant. Good. It's bad. Yeah. It's bad. Just admit it and move on. You're going to be able, you can track your kid,
All right, one last stop, and then we come to the exciting conclusion of Glenn and Adam. I love this guy. Anyway, our home's titles are online now, and once a criminal gets a hold of your title, he can forge your signature, and then it's a race against time to stop him before he takes loans out against your house, or worse, can sell your home because he's got the title. When's the last time you saw your home's title? I'm guessing it was like, I bought the house, we did a check on the title then. Yeah, that's it. Nobody's watching over this thing now. The folks over at Home Title Lock demonstrated to me how online criminals can get your title and forge a signature. They came to me with my title, and they're like, yep, all we have to do is just sign and your house is ours. It's crazy how easy it really is. So protect yourself before it's too late. I want you to go to HomeTitleLock.com, HomeTitleLock.com. Sign up. Free with sign up. You get 30 days of free protection when you use the promo code BECK. HomeTitleLock.com. So I have been, the whole conversation, I have been thinking about a conversation I had with the guy. He was in Jaws, famous actor, Goodbye Girl, Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, Richard Dreyfuss, yes.
So I had this conversation.
His recent statements.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he was here, and we hung out for a couple of hours.
Cool guy to hang out with, I bet he's fun.
Really cool.
Yeah.
We disagree on so much, but he's done his homework. And while I'll disagree with some of the conclusions he's made, or I think, you should augment this with maybe balance that view out with maybe some of this, I left there and I said to him, I would love to have you as a neighbor. And I feel the same way about you. I guess I'm building a neighborhood in my mind.
Yeah.
I would love to have Richard Dreyfuss on this side and you on this side. Because
what a block party that would be.
Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah, it would be fantastic.
We don't, and this is what America's missing. We don't necessarily agree on everything. But when you do, it's boring. It's boring.
Totally. And I think we're really fortunate in Fredericksburg, where we live now, which is, it's a little small town, 15,000 people, grows to 60,000 on the weekend. We've got wineries and everything.
Too close to Austin, though, for my taste.
It's far. It's just far enough for. I get your point, though. I get your point. We have lots of churches, a lot of churches in Fredericksburg, and our pastor happens to head like the council. They have a little meeting every once a month, whatever. And there's some very liberal churches and some very conservative churches and just all different denominations. But I'm seeing such wonderful things happen there, and they preach to their own communities, and we're getting to some version of that. We had a real big problem with the books in the high school, and until we have the Moms for Liberty who are out to just draw blood, and there was a calming effect that came when all the pastors and the ministers came together, and they all took each other out to lunch and had a drink, and then, hey, what can we do about this? And everyone's kind of talking to their own congregation. It's a way. It's not the way, but it's a way that I see working, and I'm very, very happy about.
The minute I see a movement like Martin Luther King, who was a very flawed individual, but his message was, do not strike back. This is a movement of love. Do not strike back. The minute I find that guy, I would follow that guy, because that is the only way to solve this, is to introduce true unconditional love. I've got this great note from, his name was Hugh Stafford. He was in the Hanoi Hilton. And his wife and children gave me a box of all of his writings. It was just this amazing thing.
I love your museum, Glenn. I hope you can show it to me again today.
Oh, yeah.
I love
We've
your
got
museum.
a lot of new stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But in it, he talks about forgiveness. And the way he writes about forgiveness, and don't judge other people. You don't know if you would do the same thing if you were in his shoes. Now, he's talking about a guy who's pulling his arms out of his sockets every day. And it's just beautiful. The perspective this guy had at the worst time of his life is just remarkable.
And there's many examples of that. And hopefully we can get more movies and books and things written. That would be great to get that.
More examples.
More examples. That's very kind of you to say. I have to say I'm also a Malcolm X fan. I think Malcolm X also, although he had a little more radical bent on it later on, he did say he spoke so much truth from the Black American perspective. And that's often missing. I like to combine those two. There's a good mix there. I haven't read
enough Malcolm X to know the nuance.
It's all nuance, of course. But I've studied as much as I can, and I'm just like, wow, Malcolm X he has bad marketing. He got some bad PR. But from the Black American perspective, is also completely misrepresented. And just like when we said, hey, not all Muslims are bad and the American Muslims have to stand up and say something, which some did, we still need a lot more Black American leaders to stand up. We also need gay and lesbians to stand up and say, hold on a second.
I agree.
This LGBTQ plus is not a community. We don't belong. This is not entirely true, if not at all.
Yeah.
And they're being abused and lied about. So we need, everyone needs to step up and say something about it.
To their own side.
Of course.
To their own side.
Of course, yeah.
Great to see you.
Glenn, I love coming here, man.
Thank
I
you.
really do.
Likewise. I love having you.
Appreciate it.
Let's plan it again. Next time, let's make sure it's not a year.
Anytime. I'm good with
Thank
it.
you.